Hi there, I'm Jeremy Schiff, the CEO of RecruitBot, and today we're going to talk about how machine learning and automation is revolutionizing how people go about recruiting. So, some high-level takeaways we're going to talk about is, first of all, the shift from quantity to quality as the economy changes. So, we're seeing a lot of pullback in the economy, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion about what and how different organizations should scale. And as a result, there's a big shift between hiring as many good people as possible to really making sure that you're hiring the absolutely best people that are available and making sure that those people return the ROI that ultimately the organizations need in order to survive these tumultuous times. So being an organization that leans into understanding that there's that uncertainty and meets it head on is going to be a lot more effective during the recession. And ultimately, as we sort of find our way out of it, we'll be best positioned to be successful as things go back to a more accelerated and aggressive place. The second is sort of LinkedIn has been the gold standard for a very long time in terms of how you find and engage with potential candidates to go and hire, specifically when you're reaching out to them. And there's an entirely new generation of tools that are available that can really drive amazing efficiency and improve quality of the candidates that you're engaging with. So ranging from helping with interviewing to finding the right candidates. Literally at RecruitBot, we've seen interview rates drop by 50%. So I'm interviewing literally half the number of candidates that I need to in order to make a hire because the quality has gotten so much better. So there's really a lot of opportunity to leverage the next generation of tools to help with recruiting. And the third is that automation and machine learning are very much here to stay. But the good news is that unlike what everyone's talking about recently with OpenAI and ChatGPT and all of these sort of conventional recruiting tools that we've been talking about, the machine learning and automation and AI isn't coming for everyone's jobs. As a matter of fact, what it's really going to do is the people who understand how to leverage these tools are going to be much, much more productive, which ultimately is going to yield much higher salaries for the people that are engaging with these tools. So what are some sort of topics of areas where machine learning might be able to really help change things? Well, before when I was spending a lot of time reviewing resumes and most of them weren't relevant, now I can use machine learning to go and find the candidates that are most relevant for the positions that I'm looking for. And so what does that mean? I'm spending a lot more time talking to candidates rather than reviewing resumes that aren't relevant. Another example would be, well, I used to have to follow up with every candidate one by one. Well, in 2023, this is crazy. Now I can have the software automatically email and follow up and get those people to talk to me. So I can spend more time changing my messaging to improve the response rates and spend a lot less time focused on sort of doing the tasks of scheduling and reminding myself to go and reach out to those people again. So we'll talk a lot more about these sorts of approaches and how they can improve things, but you can see that really it's about a shift in how you work, not that your job suddenly is obsolete and some robot is coming to take over. Which leads me into my next slide, which is what are we actually talking about today? So the first is we're really going to talk about what's going on with AI and machine learning. What are the differences between AI and machine learning? What do people think that they can do? What can they actually do? Really getting a better understanding of all of these different terms and trying to understand. The second is, so how do these things actually affect me? So giving me more intuition about machine learning, helping me understand how to spot sort of the snake oil, and then how machine learning and AI can both hurt and help diversity, depending on if you use it properly versus not, and how automation can ultimately be a major driver in pushing the machine learning forward even more effectively. And then lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about how RecruitBot ultimately folds into these things and leverages these concepts to really help a broad constituent of people involved in the recruiting process be a lot more effective, efficient, and generally engaging with better quality people with a lot less effort. So who am I and why on earth am I able to sort of talk about this with any sort of with any sort of understanding or confidence about the topic? So I've actually been building machine learning companies for my entire career. I started out getting a PhD in applied machine learning from Berkeley. Then I went on to start a company called PhotoFlexer, which was an online photo editor that powered companies like MySpace and PhotoBucket. We were one of the #1 photo editors on Facebook, and we grew to over 50 million people using us every month. After that, I moved to Nest Computing, which was working on personalized restaurant recommendations. So think of how Netflix recommends movies based on the movies that you've liked in the past, but except now we're recommending restaurants that you might like based on where you've gone and what you've liked in the past. Ultimately, that got sold to OpenTable, where I ran machine learning and data science. And as I was building out my machine learning and data science teams, I got very frustrated with how hard it was to build out those teams and really engage top tier talent, and was surprised about how manual the process was. And ultimately, that led me to starting RecruitBot 5 or 6 years ago now. And we have a very different set of tools and approaches that are accessible to us today. So let's talk a little bit about machine learning and sort of recruiting and how those things intersect. So the first one was like, is AI really going to come and take my job? Is it coming to like make myself obsolete? And the reality is there are a lot of things that software can do now that it wasn't able to do even a couple of years ago. And I think we've all seen from ChatGPT how you can interact with computers and ask it questions, and it'll give very different answers than it could with Google even a couple of months ago. And so this doesn't mean that your work goes away, but this means that the type of work that you're doing is really different. Then another concern is AI going to be like really scary? Is it going to be hard to use? Is it going to be complicated? And the reality is a lot of these AI and machine learning approaches are really focused on making things easier and more intuitive for us rather than needing to be some sort of specific expert to go and be effective. And the better the machine learning and AI gets, the easier it should actually be to interact with the software, not the worst. Another concern is, are AI and is it really going to come and sort of replace human intelligence? And it is going to get more sophisticated over time, but that is going to leave more room for creativity and higher level thinking, as opposed to sort of much more day-to-day sort of tactical work like sending out lots of emails or something like that, where software can do that in a much more scale and automated way. And another big one is that AI and machine learning are the same. And the reality is they're actually quite different. And we're going to spend a little time today digging into what makes them different. Excuse me. So I want to sort of address a sort of common concern that I hear all the time. As you might imagine, someone who works at the intersection of machine learning and recruiting is like, are the robots all coming for my jobs? And the reality is the way that you're doing your job now is going to look very different to the way you're going to be doing your job 5 or 10 years from now. But the task is ultimately going to be the same. But what's really exciting in my mind is that it's going to provide a lot of efficiencies that are going to allow you to be much more effective at your job than you were today. So if you were a hiring manager, you're going to be much more effective at helping your sourcers and recruiters identify which candidates are the most relevant ones. If you're a recruiter or a sourcer, you're going to spend a lot less time finding the right people and a lot more time engaging with them, finding the right messaging to talk to them, etc. And what ultimately this means is you're going to be able to satisfy a lot more positions with the same number of recruiters. And so it's going to allow you to be a lot more strategic about how you think about these things, especially as the battle for talent only increases. So what does this mean? This ultimately means that if before I was able to fill 10 jobs and now I can fill 15, well, then I should be making more money because I'm helping fill a lot more jobs for the organization than I was before. And so this is something that we're really excited about. And something, frankly, that we're seeing is that the role of recruiters and sourcers is really taking much more center stage, both as the talent war increases as well as the sophistication of these tools continue to evolve. So the reality, though, is I'm sure that if you've walked around any conference floor for a recruiting workshop or sourcing, you've really found that AI is sort of sprinkled through everything. Everyone claims that they're doing AI, and the reality is the vast majority of it is a marketing gimmick. But there are definitely companies doing some truly exceptional things with AI and machine learning. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can go and tell the difference between which is nonsense and which are things that are really going to be valuable. So in order to do that, we're going to just go through sort of three high-level concepts: what an algorithm is, what AI is, and what machine learning is. And just so you sort of have an idea of how to think about this, AI is a type of an algorithm, and machine learning is a type of AI. So an algorithm is literally just a set of steps that are necessary to solve a specific task. So a simple example might be I'm going to go and cook my favorite squash soup. If I want to go and cook my squash soup, there's a set of tasks that I do, and if I do them the same way consistently and effectively, I'm going to get a fantastic squash soup every time. And so all an algorithm is it's a set of steps that I need to take in order to go and accomplish something. So it might be something like a recipe, or it might be something like, you might all remember sort of how we went through a bunch of steps a long time ago to do long division, and you just sort of follow the steps along the way, and you get you get the answer to how one number is divided by another. And so ultimately, any algorithm is just a set of steps. And it turns out computers are really good that if you give me a set of steps, I can go and understand what to do. Now, the challenge with most algorithms is they're focused on a sort of right way or wrong way. Either the computer did the task or it didn't do the task. Either I have the squash soup or I don't have the squash soup. So, for example, if I post a tweet on Twitter, if I click the send button and the computer does the right things and my tweet shows up and everyone else can see it, it sort of succeeded. Otherwise, it failed. Now, there's a whole sort of type of algorithms which are called artificial intelligence algorithms. And the difference between an artificial intelligence algorithm and a normal algorithm is that rather than saying, I'm just trying to achieve a task, now I'm achieving a task where there's a better and worse answer rather than a right or wrong answer. And a standard example is maybe I'm playing chess. Now, there's no right answer in chess. There's no absolutely optimal move, or if there is, it's very, very hard to sort of work out what it is. But there is definitely a better move and a worse move. Otherwise, it wouldn't be any fun to play chess. And so the interesting thing about AI is it tries to work out, how do I reason about something where there are better and worse answers rather than right and wrong answers? So an example in recruiting might be, find me resumes that are right for the position. Now, again, there's no right answer or there's no right answer or wrong answer. There's not, this is the best candidate on the planet for this position, but these candidates are better fit for what I'm going to look for, and these candidates are worse. And the AI can go and help with something like that. Then there's machine learning. And the big distinction with machine learning is that it's actually going to learn how to go and work out how the software should go and do something for, again, a sort of AI sort of task. So there's a better answer and a worse answer, but now it's going to do that based on some information, which are typically called labels, which in some sense are just decisions that you've made in the past. So let me take an example from some work that we did at OpenTable. Well, if I'm going to recommend restaurants that you might want to go to, then I can take in, where are the restaurants that you've made reservations and gone to in the past? which ones have you liked and which ones haven't you liked. And I can use that information to go and recommend where you might want to go. Now, a really important distinction between sort of machine learning recommendation approaches versus AI is that the machine learning is personalized. Namely, when I'm going to recommend flights or a Sipan Peruvian restaurant over some other restaurant, what I'm doing here is I'm personalizing that this set of restaurants is probably great for you, but might be really a poor fit for some other person. And we can look at a bunch of criteria that might matter. How expensive is the restaurant? What type of cuisine is it? Is it good for dinner or breakfast? Is it really have great aesthetics, or is the food better? And all of those things, some people may care a lot more for or less for, right? Like one of my favorite questions is asking people if they find Indian food to be a great first date. A lot of people think it's great. A lot of people don't. And it turns out that the people who think it's great for a first date typically care more about aesthetics. And people who don't are generally more concerned about eating spicy food in front of someone that they're just getting to know. And so, again, there's no right answer or wrong answer, but there is a better answer or a worse answer for a specific individual. And so the software can help determine that based on the decisions that you've been making in the past. So let's talk a little bit about how machine learning might work. So I always have two things, or almost always. I have data, and then I have labels, which are basically decisions about that data. So in this case, we're going to talk about the data is a set of resumes, and the labels are a set of ratings. And now I'm going to try and work out which new resumes that I get are going to be great for the position that I'm looking for based on this information of the resumes that I have in the past and the ratings that I have. Now, again, I'm going to use all sorts of different things like job title, years of experience, education, skills. These are all going to be different factors. You could even go in as deep as they have lots of leadership words or action-oriented words. Everyone's going to care about sort of different things. And you can reverse engineer what's most important for the specific role based on the decisions that you've been making. So how does this work? Well, now I get a new resume, and I want to predict whether or not that candidate is a good fit for this position. So I have the data and I have the ratings, like 1 star being that it's a terrible fit for this position, 5 star being that it's a fantastic fit for this position. And then I've taught the system what I'm looking for. And now if I get a new resume, I want to predict a new rating based on everything I know about how much the specific recruiter or hiring manager cares. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to generate something called a model. And the model is just sort of a way of encoding all of these different properties about the sort of attributes that I care about and the attributes that I don't care about. And then I can take this model and I can use the data and put it into a prediction engine, which is going to then say, based on what I've learned, given this new data, is this resume going to be a good fit or not? And frankly, this is actually very similar and intuitive to how a recruiter might sit down with a hiring manager and calibrate and say, which of these resumes do you like and which of these resumes do you not like and why do you like them? But instead, we're using statistics to work out what's in common with the great candidates rather than relying on sort of someone verbally explaining what they care about. And so ultimately, machine learning is the process of generating this model so that I can then go and predict this information. And so all machine learning is doing is learning how to map the statistics about what's in your resume and the information about the label to work out which of these candidates are really going to be great and which of these are going to be poor. And so, first of all, a lot of people talk about AI, and they blur the lines between AI and machine learning. And so AI is really focused on really giving the same set of recommendations to every person. And machine learning is actually going to optimize those sort of what people care about based on the decisions that they've been making in the past. So for example, with AI, I might be judging a similar score based on the sort of job titles and saying that score times 5, and then finding whether or not it's a similar school times 3. So basically saying job titles are uh, are more important than the schools in terms of whether or not this is a great software engineer. Now, machine learning instead is going to say, I'm going to learn whether or not the job title or the school is more important for this specific position based on the decisions that the system is being given by the recruiter or the hiring manager. And so you can see how this is going to be a lot more powerful in finding the right people. So if people are talking about AI, they're generally talking about giving you the same generic results. So if I log in to an AI system and I search for software engineer and someone else looks for software engineer, they're going to get exactly the same results every time. They're going to reach out to the same candidates every time. It's going to be a lot less effective. So if you're going to try and spot the snake oil, you really want to sort of nudge vendors in describing how it works. So if I'm going to go and work out whether or not someone is likely to be a woman, you can use, for example, you could ask, like, how is that going to work? And they might say, well, I'm going to be using the names of of a large group of people, and knowing these are likely to be female names and these are likely to be male names, I can now predict the likelihood that a new name is a woman. So you can see how that's actually pretty intuitive that might work. Or I'm going to find candidates who have similar experience, or sorry, who are the right sort of person for the job by finding similar features, whether the job title, years of experience, things on and so on, so forth. And so again, I can take in the second example, I would take the candidate resumes and the ratings, and then I can go and predict for a new resume whether or not what that rating would ultimately be. So wanted to just touch on for a second a little bit about AI and HR and diversity and inclusion. So specifically, a lot of these systems in the olden days were actually made bias a lot worse. And so you ended up finding things who were very similar to what you were sort of getting before. So you might imagine that, I think we all had this experience back in the day when you were recommended music and you all found the same 15 songs that were exactly like the ones you were looking for before. But machine learning and AI has come a long way. And the reality is that you don't have to be bias free. You just have to be less biased than humans in order to really make an advantage. So a great example is if I'm avoiding looking at names, if I'm avoiding looking at faces, like the photos of people, even little things like that can actually have a huge impact on reducing the bias that people are looking for. And an important anecdote is as people get more overwhelmed, they're going to lean more and more onto bias. And there are a lot of studies that show that, for example, if I have too many resumes I need to look through, I'm just going to fall back on top company, top university. And we all know that there are plenty of great candidates that are probably clearly a good fit based on skills and background and ability. But if I'm overloaded, I'm going to ignore all of those things, which is ultimately going to make bias worse. So it turns out machine learning and AI can really improve on DEI instead of making things worse, as long as people are thoughtful about how they're doing it. And something to harp on is that only 31% of HR and TA leaders said that they actually have a data-driven approach to help understanding and addressing bias. But the good news is that a lot of tools are starting to make this out of the box, which will hopefully drive that number up, because frankly, it'll be a lot easier to just understand the diversity of your workforce from sourcing all the way through to your entire interview process and hiring them. And I wanted to mention that machine learning is great, but it actually can even be turbocharged by automation. So whether I'm reviewing candidates rapidly or reaching out to them, whether it's in bulk or automatically following up with them, or building a bench of people that from a talent pool of people that I'm trying to look for, all of these areas of places where automation can help a lot. And you can really reallocate your time savings to things like spending more time engaging with candidates or improving the messaging or optimizing your DEI initiatives, or even making sure that you have better alignment between the hiring manager and the recruiter to make sure that you're really engaging the ideal people. So typically I would stop here and answer some questions, but as this is a virtual talk, I'd rather just implore, I love talking about these things. So if you want to talk about machine learning or data science or AI, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and my information will be at the end of the talk. But I want to take a brief aside and talk a little bit about how RecruitBot is actually applying these techniques to revolutionize recruiting. So one important distinction of RecruitBot is rather than thinking of recruiting as a funnel, where you have your candidates, you find a set of people, you reach out to them, you engage the right people, you interview them, you hire them, and then you start all over again. Instead, it's better to think of them as a flywheel. And by that I mean a flywheel is something where as you're sort of giving it energy, it's gaining momentum and getting faster and faster and faster. So how would this work? Well, with the machine learning, as we've talked about, the machine learning will identify what I'm looking for in a role. So if I'm hiring my 20th engineer or then my 100th engineer or my 1000th engineer, the software should get a better and better understanding of what's in common. What do I like about these sorts of candidates? So when I'm reviewing resumes in the future, it's actually a lot easier to identify the candidates that are most relevant for you to go and engage with. Then I can automate the process of validating and sending large numbers of emails to get those candidates to respond. RecruitBot is a passive outreach tool, so our job is to get people who aren't looking for jobs to ultimately engage with you. And so if you can send a higher volume of emails, whether it's by rapidly personalizing them or even bulk outreach, we can drive a lot more conversations. But then we can use the information for those conversations to improve things, right? So I can use the analytics to A/B test and understand, hey, the messaging from Jane's campaign is much better than Bob's campaign. So maybe we should start using Jane's campaigns in more messages, or what's it about Jane's campaigns that are great, so I can go and iterate and improve. So as you're doing this over and over and over again, the machine learning is getting smarter and smarter about what you're looking for. The automated messaging is allowing you to get a lot of data, and then the A/B testing is allowing you to improve your messaging every time. So every time you go around this loop, you're going to get better and better at targeting and engaging with those right sorts of candidates, making it less effort and improving the quality of the people that you're engaging with, which is why we're so excited about the technology that we're working on. So there are 5 very simple steps that are necessary to get to what we call the recruiting revolution, which is solving the problem soup to nuts, all the way from finding the right people all the way through to engaging those people and getting those people to talk to you. And so RecruitBot solves all of those pieces along the way. And once we've handed off to you a great candidate, then it's off to you to sort of engage with that person and ultimately drive the hire. So the first step is searching through our database of 600 million people. This number is increasing all the time. And we can use RecruitBot to prioritize all of the most relevant people automatically using machine learning. So there's a lot of different search criteria that you might be able to define: job title, years of experience, education, skills, Boolean search, all sorts of different abilities. We even have the ability that you type in one job title and it'll go and suggest up to 100 others that might be relevant to save you time. You might want to filter based on a DEI signal, like a woman or someone who's African American or Latinx. And then you can start rating candidates that you like. And as you're rating the system 1 to 5, the system is going to learn, oh, I get it. This is what's really relevant about the specific candidate. And it's going to do 2 things. If I rate them 1 star, that candidate's going to go away. If I rate them 5 stars, they're going to go into that qualified bucket. And then I can go and sort of rapidly deal with everyone that I've shortlisted. But you can see that that RecruitBot is generating these purple predicted stars, which means every time I'm making a decision, which I would be doing anyways, the system is identifying what do I have in common with those people, so that I can go and find other candidates who are similar to those people to reach out to ultimately improve the process. Next, I want to talk about automatically engaging candidates with personalized outreach, but that's also validated. So once I found candidates that I like, I can go and either one by one in a very quick and easy way or in bulk, go and engage with and reach out with the candidates that are most exciting. And so in order to engage with those candidates, literally I just click on them and I click reach out, and the system automatically understands. It'll automatically find emails, it'll automatically find phone numbers, and I can select an email campaign, and it'll automatically email, automatically follow up, and it'll keep emailing the candidate until they respond, and obviously it'll stop once they've responded, and will make it really easy to ultimately drive a conversation with those people. And so all the time, making sure that your email domain is protected And actually, it turns out every email domain has its own sort of reputation score, and RecruitBot spends a lot of energy in terms of making sure that your reputation stays good over time, so those emails actually show up in candidates' inboxes to drive lots of conversations. The third step is really about optimizing your effectiveness. So we provide a lot of different dashboards to understand for every position what my conversion rates are from sent all the way through to hired. I can A/B test my campaigns and understand, oh, this campaign has a better open rate, but this campaign has a better response rate, so I can go and drive and improve the process. And I can also understand all sorts of activity information about how many messages are different recruiters sending out, what are their conversion rates, et cetera. So really making it super easy to use data to help drive every decision that you might make. Next, we make it really easy to collaborate with team members. So whether that's leaving notes and tagging them so that other people can sort of provide feedback, or whether that's allowing you to all rate candidates and the system building up a score that takes into account everyone's decisions, all the way through to a recruiter generating a search and then allowing a hiring manager to go and modify it in order to find additional people based on domain-specific knowledge. We make that all really easy to do. And then the last thing worth citing is that we integrate with your ATS and all of your other tools. And so we make it really easy to, in less than 15 minutes, to go through, set up your positions, set up all of the configuration between your ATS and RecruitBot, and make sure that the data sort of flows seamlessly. So this might mean for automatically exporting candidates. This might mean for helping you data mine your ATS and finding candidates in there that are automatically matched to RecruitBot's database, so that we're automatically finding those candidates, but updating the resumes in your database based on the information that we're updating all the time, all the way through to driving analytics from reach out all the way through to hire, so you can understand, oh, I'm getting a lot of candidates that are responding, but the wrong people and not ultimately interviewing. So we make it really easy to go and sort of set all of that information up and work with your tools. So just a quick plug, RecruitBot has really been changing the lives of a lot of founders, recruiters, heads of talent, and agencies, and really has been really focused on really making sure that the users are happy and are spending less and less energy engaging with more and more people that they like. And so it's been great that we have a 4.7 on Capterra, and I think one of my favorite quotes is that after years of looking through other recruiting tools, I finally found a better solution. RecruitBot is the better solution. So I really appreciate everyone's time today. I'd love to sort of provide demos and walk through RecruitBot a lot more. So if this is interesting to you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much for your time. We look forward to hearing from you.